Somebody get my insulin, because this room is full of eye candy. I was working on that one all day. I want to thank the Feast of Fun boys here for inviting me to spin you a yarn. And a yarn I shall spin. It's about the time I met FDR at a bathhouse. Much like this one. I wrote it down all here in my sex journal. And if one of you guys is lucky, you might get an entry in it by the end of the night. And by it, I mean my ass. You like that one, I can tell, because your pants are getting tighter. And I begin. February 3rd, 1945. Clark Gable, yes, the Clark Gable and I attended a sex party at Joan Crawford's place. Now, to be honest, it wasn't really much of a party. Just the three of us. I didn't even have any sex. Just sat around and watched old Joan fuck the dickens out of Clark with a strap on. And let me tell you, it matched perfectly with a huge set of balls. Which I think that was meant to not be taken literally. Oh, we had such good times. There they were on Joan's bearskin rug, listening to Pennies from Heaven by Bing Crosby and the Andrews Sisters. Joan was plowing Clark so hard I thought she'd dig her way to China. Throughout their mock copulation, she made Gable recite her favorite lines from her own movies. Typical Joan. Meanwhile, Clark was wearing the dress donned by none other than Scarlett O'Hara herself. Let's just say the curtains match his drapes. Huh? You like that one, didn't you? Crack your egg, that's right. Get you wet. Drinks were drunk, pills were taken, but Joan just kept thrusting away. Let me tell you, this woman was like an assembly line. In, out, martini. In, out, martini. But eventually, you know, she downed enough Quaaludes to take down King Kong himself. Not to be confused with King Dong, which was a popular porno at the time. So Clark and I skipped out of a joint real quiet-like and made our way up the street to Boys Town, by which I mean the orphanage started by Father Flanagan, of course. On the way, we ran into James Stewart, who you probably know better as Jimmy. He was hanging out in front of the old Stop and Shop on official USO duty. You know, entertaining the troops. But, you know, what with the war going on, all the boys were overseas. Well, being a big fan of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and also horny as fuck, I got the bright idea to ask Jimmy if he'd like to grab a gin fizz with Clark and I at the Swashbuckler, which was the local bachelor bar at the time, which I can tell you frequent a lot, and you should take me there because I've not had a date since 1962. Okay. That's right. I don't mean to be scaring you. I know my look is aged with time, but I can still get it up. Of course, Clark and I had no intention of going to any bar. We'd already had enough booze to satisfy the likes of W.C. Fields. Instead, we led him to a back alley. Well, turns out the top Hollywood star was more than willing to bottom. And how? Now, this part of my journal, I actually transcribed the incident with Jimmy Stewart. And so, to honor his spirit, I would like to do this next part in his voice, if I may, which I do. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Put it in there. Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Ow, more. Oh, more. Oh, fuck me. Oh, fuck. Oh, give me a reach around and bite my nipples. Spank my ass. Oh, I'm a naughty boy. Well, thank you. We were good friends that night. When we finished up, we all laid in a nearby dumpster, looking up at the stars and smoking our Pall Mall cigarettes, which were prescribed to me by my doctor for a bad case of lung bug. That's when old Jimmy turned to Clark and I and said, "Well, you know, boys, it's a wonderful life." And that's how that happened. Well, anyway, Clark and I left Jimmy. We were going to go get a phosphate at the local soda shop when we passed a mysterious building we'd never seen before. The sign read, "Fuddy Duddy Buddy, a place for hep cats. No pussy allowed." That sounded like the bee's knees to us, so we cast an eyeball to make sure the coast was clear and ducked right on in. The place was like a fun house. Doors everywhere, halls of mirrors, strange figures jumping out of nowhere and waving their penises in my face. It was like the 1904 World's Fair all over again. Clark and I were a couple of neophytes to this scene. We were bumbling around like a real Laurel and Hardy, who were coincidentally getting rim jobs in the jacuzzi. They're dead now, so they don't give a shit what I say up here. Eventually, we overcame our angst and happened upon none other than President Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself. He was sitting up straight in his chair with an erection, so naturally I took him for a top. But it turns out he was just waiting for someone to flip him over. Let it sink in for a little bit. If you've ever seen Annie, you know what I'm talking about. But you know, it turns out, oh wait, I can't say I was attracted to the man. But that never stopped me from boofing before. So Clark and I took turns giving old FDR some SCX. And he was surprisingly quite the power bottom. Well, afterward, we all sat back and basked in post-coital glow. And then a strange thing happened. FDR looked at Clark and said, "You know, you look a lot like Stalin." And then he turned to me and said, "And you fuck just like a young Winston Churchill." Well, and the very next day was the Yalta Conference. And that helped lead to the end of World War II. So, you're welcome. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for letting an old man relive his glory days. I'm gonna let you kids get back to your coffee enemas and your felching or whatever it is you guys do. I don't know, I'm behind the times. I'm gonna be sleeping in a sling, but if you wanna give me a sponge bath, just tap me on the shoulder. Thank you.